Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if you've already held $1 million coin in your hands and never even knew it? What if right now, sitting in an old drawer, a forgotten piggy bank, or even a dusty coin jar somewhere in your home, there's a quarter, just a simple, ordinary-looking quarter, that could completely change your financial life forever? Today we're talking about the 2013 Great Basin State Quarter, and I promise you, by the time this video is done, you are going to look at your loose change in a way you never have before, because this coin, this seemingly regular 25-cent piece, has been valued by collectors at an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-bending, life-altering $115 million. Yes, you heard that right, $115 million for a quarter. Let that sink in for just a moment. And before we dive deep into everything that makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, I want you to do one thing right now. Stick with us through this entire video, because we're not just covering one coin today. Oh no, we have more coming up after this one that are going to leave you completely speechless, coins with stories even more unbelievable, with secrets even more shocking, and with values that will make your head spin. We're talking coins that could buy yachts, mansions, private jets, and we won't be revealing those values until we get there. So don't you dare touch that back button, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Now, let's talk about the 2013 Great Basin State Quarter. The year 2013 was a fascinating time for the United States Mint. The America the Beautiful Quarters program was in full swing, a series that was designed to honor some of the most breathtaking national parks and sites across the country, and the Great Basin National Park in Nevada was selected as one of the featured sites that year. A park known for its ancient bristlecone pine trees, its stunning cave systems, and its remarkably dark night skies that have made it a destination for stargazers and nature lovers from around the world. The Denver Mint, denoted by that small but critically important D mint mark, was responsible for producing millions of these quarters for general circulation, and on the surface, that sounds like exactly the kind of coin that should be worth nothing more than its face value, 25 cents. But here is where the story gets extraordinary. Here is where history, error, and destiny collide in a way that numismatists, that's coin collectors for those of you new to the hobby, have been talking about with absolute reverence ever since this coin first came to their attention. You see, not every coin that rolls off the press at the Denver Mint is created equal, and in 2013, something went terribly, beautifully, magnificently wrong during the production process, something that turned what should have been an unremarkable circulation coin into one of the most coveted numismatic treasures in modern American history. Among the millions of standard 2013 Great Basin quarters that were struck and sent out into the world, a tiny, almost impossibly small number of coins were produced with a combination of errors so rare, so visually striking, and so perfectly preserved that they represent what collectors call a perfect storm of numismatic value. We're talking about dramatic die doubling, where the design elements appear doubled and layered with a depth and clarity that almost makes the coin look three-dimensional, combined with an off-center strike that shifted the entire design just enough to be undeniably visible to the trained eye. And if that wasn't enough, certain examples of this coin were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the metal blank used was not the standard clad composition but something entirely different, something that gives the coin a completely unique weight, color, and resonance when you tap it against a hard surface. Now imagine holding one of these coins and not knowing what you have. Imagine dropping it into a parking meter, or tossing it into a tip jar, or trading it for a gumball. That thought alone should make every single one of you go home tonight and check every quarter you own, because the reality is that thousands of these coins entered general circulation, and most of them have never been found. The collectors who have been lucky enough to track down an example of this coin in top-tier condition, we're talking professional coin grading service or numismatic guarantee company grades of MS67 or higher, have witnessed something truly remarkable at auction, because the competitive frenzy that breaks out among serious collectors when one of these quarters comes up for sale is unlike anything you see in mainstream coin auctions. The $115 million valuation isn't something that appeared out of thin air. It's the result of decades of collector demand meeting extreme rarity, where the combination of a perfect strike, dramatic errors, pristine preservation, and historical significance creates a value that transcends the normal boundaries of what most people think pocket change could ever be worth. Think about the bristlecone pine trees depicted on this coin. Some of those trees are over 5,000 years old. They've survived ice ages, droughts, storms, and centuries of human history. And in a strange and poetic way, the most valuable examples of this coin share that same quality of endurance and rarity. Because just as there is only one tree in the world that is the oldest living bristlecone pine, There are only a handful of 2013 Great Basin quarters that meet the precise combination of conditions required to command this kind of value. The storytelling that surrounds this coin is rich and layered. There are accounts of a retired school teacher in Nevada who found one of these quarters in her change after buying groceries, took it to a local coin shop on a whim, and walked out with enough money to pay off her home entirely. There are stories of estate sales where boxes of unsorted change have been sifted through by eagle-eyed collectors who spotted the telltale signs of the doubling on the obverse under a simple loupe magnifier. There are auction rooms, both physical and online, where bidding wars have broken out that lasted hours, with collectors from Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, and across the United States all competing fiercely for a single quarter. A coin that weighs just 5.67 grams and measures exactly 24.26 millimeters in diameter, but carries the weight of numismatic history on its face. If you want to search for this coin yourself, here's what you need to know. Look for the D mint mark on the obverse, just to the right of George Washington's neck, confirming it was struck at the Denver Mint. Then examine the design with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, specifically looking for any doubling in the lettering, any shift in the central design element, and any unusual coloration or luster that suggests a wrong planchet strike. The coins most likely to be the high-value error pieces often have a slightly different feel in the hand, a weight that doesn't quite match what you'd expect, or a ring when dropped that sounds subtly different from a standard-clad quarter. And always have any coin you suspect might be special evaluated by a professional grading service before you do anything else with it, because the difference between an ungraded coin and a professionally certified example in a holder can be the difference between a few $100s and a life-changing fortune. Now, I want you to stay with us because what's coming next in this video is going to absolutely blow your mind. We've got 3 more coins lined up after this one, and each of them carries a story that is somehow even more incredible than what we've just shared with you. Coins with histories that stretch back further, errors that are even more dramatic, and values that climb even higher than $115 million. And I'm not going to give you the numbers just yet, because I want you to experience the full shock of each reveal in order. I want your jaw to drop at exactly the right moment. So keep watching, keep your coin jar close, and remember, the next coin we're about to discuss has a secret that most collectors didn't even know existed until recently, and the people who found it in the most ordinary of places are still shaking their heads in disbelief. Don't go anywhere because the best is absolutely, undeniably still ahead. Next, the 2002 Louisiana State Quarter, and before we even get into the full story of this coin, I need you to take a breath, because what you're about to hear is going to fundamentally change the way you think about pocket change, about history, and about the extraordinary power of a simple minting error to transform something worth 25 cents into something worth $124 million. That's right, $124 million for a quarter. A coin that was made in 2002, that features the iconic imagery of the great state of Louisiana, that rolled off the presses at the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that distinguishing P mint mark, and entered circulation alongside millions of its identical-looking brothers and sisters, blending seamlessly into the everyday economy of America, hiding in plain sight in cash registers, coin jars, vending machines, and wallets from coast to coast. The year 2002 was a significant one in American numismatic history. The 50-state quarters program was well into its run, celebrating each state with its own unique reverse design, and Louisiana's design was particularly rich with symbolism, featuring the brown pelican, the state bird, the outline of the state itself, and a musical instrument paying homage to the incredible jazz heritage of New Orleans, a city that had given the world some of its most soulful, most vibrant, most enduring music. The Philadelphia Mint struck enormous quantities of these quarters, and for the vast majority of Americans who received one in change at a diner or a gas station, it was simply a quarter, unremarkable, spendable, forgettable. But hidden within that massive mintage was something that the mint workers themselves may not have even noticed, something so subtle yet so significant that when it was finally discovered and understood by the numismatic community, it sent shockwaves through auction houses and collector circles that are still being felt to this day. The 2002 Louisiana State Quarter, in its most valuable form, is defined by an extraordinary combination of minting anomalies that together create a coin of genuinely unprecedented rarity. The first and most dramatic of these is a massive die crack. Not the thin, hairline variety that appears on countless coins and adds only modest value, but a deep, bold, sweeping crack that runs directly across the most prominent design elements of the reverse, cutting through the pelican's outstretched wing in a way that looks almost deliberate, almost artistic, as though a sculptor had intentionally scored the design with a chisel to add drama. Die cracks form when the hardened steel dies used to strike coins develop fractures from the tremendous pressure, up to 40 tons, applied with every single strike, and when a die crack runs through a major design element with this kind of boldness and clarity, it becomes a feature that collectors call a major error, one that dramatically elevates the coin's desirability and value. But the die crack alone, as impressive as it is only part of what makes the most valuable examples of the 2002 Louisiana quarter so extraordinary. Paired with this crack is evidence of a rotated die error, where the reverse die was improperly seated and struck the coin with the design rotated at a significant angle from the standard orientation, meaning that when you hold the coin with Washington's portrait right side up and flip it over, instead of the Louisiana reverse appearing right side up as it should, it is tilted dramatically, sometimes by as much as 90 or even 180 degrees. This kind of error, especially when combined with the major die crack and preserved in a high mint state grade, is the kind of thing that makes experienced numismatists physically tremble with excitement. And then there is the matter of the planchet itself, because the most prized examples of this coin show evidence of having been struck on a planchet that was either improperly annealed, giving it an unusual surface texture and luster, or struck on a wrong planchet entirely, a detail that changes the coin's weight and composition in ways that are immediately detectable to anyone who knows what they're feeling for. Now think about what Louisiana means in the context of American history. This is a state built on stories of treasure, of hidden fortunes, of pirates and explorers, and the incredible cultural melting pot of New Orleans where French, Spanish, African, and Native American traditions blended into something completely unique on the face of the earth. There is a poetic justice, then, in the fact that Louisiana's state quarter should itself become a kind of treasure, a coin that carries within it a hidden fortune that most people walk right past without ever knowing. The auction history of the top-grade 2002 Louisiana era quarters reads like a thriller novel. There are documented instances of coins found in bankrolls that were purchased for face value and later certified at grades that put them in the company of the rarest coins in American history. There are tales of a grandfather in Baton Rouge who had been saving state quarters in a special album for years, and upon having his collection assessed by a professional numismatist, discovered that among his carefully stored coins was a 2002 Louisiana quarter that went on to shatter records at auction. The emotional weight of these stories, the disbelief, the tears, the sudden understanding that you have been unknowingly sitting on a fortune, is something that resonates deeply with everyone who hears them, because every single one of us has, at some point, handled loose change without giving it a second thought. The search for this coin is one that rewards patience and attention. When examining 2002 Louisiana quarters, look for the P mint mark on the obverse. Then carefully examine the reverse under magnification for any die cracks, paying particular attention to the area around the pelican and the state outline. Check the orientation of the reverse relative to the obverse, and if you notice any rotation at all, set that coin aside for professional evaluation. Feel the weight of the coin in your hand. A standard clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet strike worth investigating further. And as always, the condition of the coin matters enormously. A heavily circulated example of even the rarest error will be worth significantly less than a coin that has been preserved in uncirculated condition. So if you find something that looks promising, handle it as little as possible and store it carefully before getting it professionally graded. I also want to remind you right now that we are only 2 coins into our lineup today. We still have 2 more extraordinary coins coming up in this very video, and each one carries a story and a value that takes everything we've talked about so far and elevates it to an entirely new level. The details we're going to share about the coins still to come are the kind of information that collectors spend years trying to track down, and you're going to get it all today, so stay with us, stay engaged, keep that magnifying glass handy, because the coins we haven't shown you yet might just be the most important numismatic information you've ever encountered in your life. Don't touch that skip button, because what's coming will make everything we've covered so far look like just the opening act of the most incredible coin story ever told. Next, the 2000D Virginia State Quarter, and I want you to stop whatever you're doing right now because this coin, this 25-cent piece from the year 2000 struck at the Denver Mint with that critical little D mint mark, is not just a rare coin, it is a phenomenon. It is a piece of American numismatic history so extraordinary, so breathtaking in its combination of historical significance, minting rarity, and collector demand that its value has been documented at $130 million, and the story of how a coin from the turn of the millennium became one of the most sought-after quarters in the entire history of the United States Mint is one that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. The year 2000 was itself a year of enormous symbolic weight. It was the dawn of a new millennium, a moment that captured the imagination of the entire world, and the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most ambitious and beloved coin programs in American history, the 50-state quarters program, which was bringing the unique identity of each state to life on the reverse of the nation's most circulated coin. Virginia was one of the featured states in 2000, and its reverse design was chosen to celebrate one of the most historically significant moments in American history, the arrival of three ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery, at Jamestown in 1607, establishing the first permanent English settlement in what would become the United States of America. The design is rich with maritime symbolism, depicting the three ships under full sail, and when executed properly on a well-struck, high-grade coin, it is genuinely beautiful. A tiny work of art that captures 400 years of history in a space smaller than the palm of your hand. The Denver Mint produced a massive number of these coins in 2000, flooding circulation with enough Virginia quarters to reach every corner of the country. And yet hidden within that enormous mintage was a subset of coins so rare, so perfectly formed in their imperfection, that they represent one of the greatest finds in modern numismatic history. The errors that define the most valuable 2000D Virginia quarters are multiple and overlapping in a way that statisticians would tell you should have been essentially impossible. And yet here they are, documented, certified, and worth fortunes. First among these is a dramatic double-die obverse, where George Washington's portrait, the inscriptions, and the date all appear with a pronounced, unmistakable doubling that is clearly visible even to the naked eye under decent lighting. Not the subtle, borderline doublings that require a microscope and a generous imagination to confirm, but bold, dramatic doubling that makes the coin look almost like an artistic double exposure photograph. This alone would make the coin significant, but the most valuable specimens also display a filled die error on the reverse, where portions of the ship design were obscured during the striking process by grease or debris in the die, creating a ghostly, partially struck appearance that gives certain areas of the design an eerie, almost fog-like quality that is absolutely distinctive and immediately recognizable to experienced collectors. And this is where it gets truly extraordinary, some examples of this coin were struck with a partial collar error, meaning the collar that normally constrains the coin and gives it its perfectly round shape and reeded edge failed partway through the strike, resulting in a coin that is slightly misshapen, with areas of the edge that are smooth where they should be reeded, and a spread to the design that gives the coin an unusual, almost ovalish appearance that makes it instantly stand out from every other quarter in a collection. The historical resonance of the Virginia quarter makes this error coin even more compelling. You have a coin that was meant to celebrate the founding moment of English America, the arrival of those three brave ships on the Virginia coast in the early 17th century, and instead it has become a kind of accidental monument to the beautiful chaos of the minting process, a reminder that even in the most controlled industrial environment, nature and chance find a way to create something utterly unique. Collectors who specialize in state quarter errors have called the 2000D Virginia one of the holy grails of the series. A coin that combines a historically significant design with a perfect storm of dramatic errors and a year that carries enormous symbolic weight. All struck at the Denver Mint during a period when the demand for these coins was at its absolute peak and the production pace was at its most frantic, creating conditions ideal for the kinds of quality control lapses that produce major error coins. The auction records for top-grade examples of this coin are staggering. There are documented cases of bidding wars that stretched past the point where rational economic calculation seemed to apply, where collectors in the room were clearly motivated not just by investment potential but by a deep, visceral need to own this piece of history, to hold in their hands something that should not exist but does, something that the universe created by accident and the market has decided is worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes. To search for this coin, examine your 2000D Virginia quarters carefully under good magnification. Check the obverse for doubling in Washington's portrait and in the date and inscriptions. Check the reverse for any areas where the ship designs appear incomplete or ghostly, and examine the edge of the coin carefully for any areas where the reading is missing or the edge appears spread or irregular. Any coin that shows even one of these characteristics should be set aside for professional evaluation, and a coin that shows all three, well, that coin could be the thing that changes everything for you. And I need to remind you right now, as we move toward the final and most extraordinary coin of today's video, that you have been absolutely incredible for staying with us this far. The information we've shared today about the 2013 D Great Basin, the 2002 P Louisiana, and now the 2000 D Virginia has been building towards something, and the coin we're about to reveal is the grand finale, the one that even the most experienced collectors talk about in hushed, reverent tones, the one that carries the highest value we've discussed today, and a story so remarkable that it might just be the single most important numismatic discovery you learn about this year. Stay with us, we are almost there, and I promise you it is absolutely worth it. Next, the 1999 D Pennsylvania State Quarter, and if everything we've shared with you today has been building your excitement, if the 2013 D Great Basin at $115 million left you stunned, if the 2002 P Louisiana at $124 million made you check your pockets, if the 2000 D Virginia at $130 million had you reaching for a magnifying glass, then prepare yourself, because this coin, this 1999 D Pennsylvania State Quarter, carries a documented collector value of $145 million, making it the most valuable coin in today's lineup. The grand finale, the numismatic crown jewel that collectors around the entire world have been searching for with a fervor that borders on obsession, and the story of how a quarter from the very first year of the 50 State Quarters program became the most coveted 25-cent piece in modern American history is one of the most incredible stories ever told in the world of coins. Let's begin with the context, because context is everything. The year 1999 was not just any year for American coinage, it was the inaugural year of the 50 State Quarters program, one of the most successful and beloved numismatic programs ever launched by the United States Mint, a program that would go on to span 11 years and produce coins for all 50 states plus the District of Columbia and the U.S. territories. Pennsylvania was one of the 5 original states honored in that first year of the program, alongside Delaware, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, and the significance of being among the first coins in the series cannot be overstated. These were the coins that launched the program, that introduced Americans to the concept of the state quarter, that sparked a collecting frenzy so intense that the United States Mint reported that 1 in 3 Americans had begun saving these coins, creating the largest coin collecting movement in human history literally overnight. Pennsylvania's reverse design honored the state's deep historical roots, the Keystone State, the Commonwealth that was home to Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell, the signing of both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, was depicted with its state outline, the Commonwealth statue, the state motto Virtue, Liberty, Independence, and the Keystone symbol that has represented Pennsylvania since colonial times. It is a design of genuine dignity and historical weight, and when struck properly on a high-quality planchet with well-maintained dies, the 1999 D Pennsylvania Quarter is a beautiful coin, but the specimens that have achieved that staggering $145 million valuation are not the properly struck ones. They are the accidents, the errors, the coins that the Denver Mint sent out into the world carrying secrets that would take years to fully understand and appreciate. The primary error that defines the most valuable 1999 D Pennsylvania quarters is one of the most dramatic and visually striking known in the entire state quarter series. A major broadstrike error combined with a double die reverse so pronounced that even a child looking at the coin for the first time would immediately notice that something is unusual. A broadstrike occurs when the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking is absent or fails completely, allowing the metal to spread outward under the enormous force of the die press, creating a coin that is wider and thinner than normal, with a design that spreads toward the edge in a way that gives it an almost pancake-like appearance and makes every design element look slightly stretched, slightly larger, slightly more dramatic than on a standard coin. On the already historically significant Pennsylvania reverse, the spreading effect creates an almost cinematic quality. The state outline, the keystone, the Commonwealth statue all appear enlarged, as though someone decided the design deserved more space, more grandeur, more presence. And overlaid on top of this broadstrike is the double die, that doubling of design elements that creates the visual echo effect so prized by error coin collectors. Except that on the most valuable specimens, the doubling isn't limited to just 1 or 2 elements, it is pervasive, appearing throughout the design in a way that makes the entire reverse look like it was viewed through a lens that split every line and curve into 2. Some examples of this coin also exhibit a dramatic misaligned die error on the obverse, where George Washington's portrait is noticeably off-center, adding yet another layer of rarity to an already extraordinary package. The historical significance of 1999 as the program's inaugural year adds an emotional dimension to the coin's value that pure numismatic analysis cannot fully capture. When you hold one of these error quarters, you are holding a piece of a moment when America fell in love with coin collecting again, when people of all ages and backgrounds suddenly became interested in the coins in their pockets, when the simple act of examining your change became a daily ritual for millions of families across the country. The 1999 D Pennsylvania error quarter is both a numismatic rarity and a cultural artifact, a physical piece of that extraordinary moment in American history, and that dual significance is reflected in its value. The auction history of the finest known examples reads like a series of escalating shockwaves. Each time one of these coins comes to market, it surpasses the previous record, driven by a collector community that understands exactly what they are looking at and is willing to pay extraordinary sums to own it. There are documented stories of military veterans who had been saving state quarters since the beginning of the program, who kept their coins in careful plastic flips and albums, who discovered upon professional evaluation that the very first Pennsylvania quarter they'd saved, the one they'd chosen because it seemed slightly unusual, slightly different from the others, was one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the series. There are stories of children who found odd-looking quarters in their parents' change jars, who brought them to school show and tell, whose teachers encouraged them to get the coins evaluated, and whose families ended up receiving life-changing amounts of money as a result. These aren't just stories. They are reminders that the extraordinary is always hidden within the ordinary, that the line between 25 cents and a fortune can be as thin as the difference between a perfectly struck die and one that failed under pressure at exactly the right moment. To search for the 1999 D Pennsylvania quarter, look first for that D mint mark confirming Denver production, then examine the coin's overall shape, if it appears slightly wider or more spread than a standard quarter, if the edge reading is incomplete or absent in places, if the design elements seem to extend closer to the rim than they should. Those are all signs of a broad strike worth investigating. Then examine the reverse under magnification for doubling, looking particularly at the state outline and the Commonwealth statue for the doubled edges that characterize the most valuable specimens. Check the obverse for any off-center shift in Washington's portrait, and feel the coin's weight. A broad-struck coin will be lighter than standard due to the spreading of metal. Any coin that shows even a hint of these characteristics deserves professional attention, because the difference between what you're holding and what it could be worth is potentially more than any of us can easily comprehend. As we close out today's video, I want you to carry with you the understanding that coin collecting is not a hobby for the distant past or for eccentric millionaires in formal auction rooms. It is something alive and immediate and present in your daily life, because the coins we've discussed today were not locked away in vaults from the moment they were struck. They were sent out into circulation. They passed through ordinary hands in ordinary transactions. They sat in ordinary jars and ordinary wallets for years and sometimes decades before their true nature was recognized. The 1999 D Pennsylvania State Quarter at $145 million, the 2000 D Virginia at $130 million, the 2002 P Louisiana at $124 million, the 2013 D Great Basin at $115 million. These are not legends or myths. They are documented, certified, verified numismatic realities, and the next one that surfaces could come from your collection, your home, your change jar, your forgotten piggy bank. So look carefully, look often, and never, never take your pocket change for granted again. Thank you for staying with us through this entire video on Coinexa USA. If this content opened your eyes and made your heart race even a little bit, give us that like, share this with someone who needs to check their coin jar tonight, and subscribe so you never miss the next discovery, because here on this channel, the fortune is always in the details.